What if God blesses the broken instead of the perfect? We often assume God only blesses people who have it all together. But Jesus completely flips the script, revealing that the kingdom actually belongs to the poor in spirit, the meek and the mourning. If you've ever felt too messy for God, this is the radical truth you need to hear about how true righteousness flows from a transformed heart. So today we're unpacking the deep truths of Matthew chapter 5. In this Bible study, we're diving headfirst into what is literally the greatest sermon ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount. And as you'll see, it creates a complete reversal of how the world normally operates. This isn't about giving you a list of rigid rules to follow. It's about a total radical paradigm shift for absolutely anyone who wants to follow Jesus. Okay, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's the world of Matthew's Gospel. You're sitting with an ethnically accurate Middle Eastern Jewish crowd, dressed in earth-toned garments on a sun-baked grassy hillside. Everyone is listening intently. And notice the deliberate parallel here. Jesus ascends the mountain, which heavily echoes Moses going up Mount Sinai, but instead of thunder and a terrifying law carved into stone, Jesus brings grace and truth. This is the hinge moment, you guys. It's the king opening his mouth to speak the very constitution of heaven. Section 1, Blueprint of Kingdom Character. We're exploring the Beatitudes and the blessing of the broken. You know, it's fascinating. Jesus kicks off this massive sermon, not with a heavy list of commands, but by announcing exactly who God's favor rests on, starting with people who are completely spiritually bankrupt. Take meekness, for instance. People totally misunderstand this word today. It is definitely not weakness or timidity or just being passive. It's actually strength under control. It's power submitted entirely to God. Think of Moses, right? He was incredibly strong and decisive, yet remarkably meek because he flat out refused to use his strength for self-promotion. Meekness is having the power to assert yourself, but actively choosing to trust God with the outcome. And that same kind of total surrender, it's exactly what's required to be pure in heart. Now, purity isn't just about moral restraint or, trying to scrub ourselves clean from the outside. You simply can't manufacture this stuff. A pure heart is not a flawless heart, but an undivided one. It's a heart that belongs wholly to God without any competing allegiances. We're talking about a supernatural transformation where God gives us a heart that beats imperfect rhythm with his own. So I want you to ask yourself right now, which side do you actually fall on? Are you a peacekeeper or are you a peacemaker? Because there's a huge difference. Peacekeepers just try to avoid conflict. They smooth over tension just to maintain this outward, artificial calm. But peacemakers, they do something far more courageous. They step directly into hostility, into the misunderstanding and division to bring true reconciliation. Peacemaking often comes at a massive personal cost, but as Jesus says, it is literally the family business of God's children. Moving on to section 2, the kingdom's visible witness, being the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Right, so when your inner character actually transforms, it inevitably becomes this blazing, highly visible witness to a really dark world. Jesus calls us the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Now, salt preserves in and adds flavor. Sure, but it is completely useless if it loses its flavor. And light exposes what prefers to remain hidden in the shadows. Your good works are supposed to shine out like a city on a hill to glorify the Father. But here's the catch. What happens when light exposes the darkness? Well, the darkness resists living out true humility, and mercy becomes a quiet rebuke to the culture around us. So persecution isn't a sign that you've done something wrong. It's actually a mark of authenticity that you truly belong to the kingdom. All right, section 3, righteousness from within. Jesus fulfills the law by elevating it to the heart level. Now this right here is a theological centerpiece of the entire chapter. Jesus makes it absolutely crystal clear. He didn't come to destroy the law, he came to internalize it. The old law and the Pharisees, they focused heavily on outward behavior, meticulous rule keeping and finding all these technical loopholes. But Jesus demands a standard of inward purity, transformed desires, and total surrender. He goes straight for the root. It's not just about, hey, don't commit murder. It's about realizing that unresolved anger is the actual root of murder. It's realizing that our obsession with self-protection is the root of retaliation. True righteousness flows entirely from the inside out. Which brings us to section 4, Kingdom Living Today, grounding these first century teachings right here in our 21st century daily lives. Look, Matthew chapter 5 isn't just some beautiful historical document we admire from a distance. It's a daily practical blueprint that demands action in our lives right now. We have to surrender our anger and pursue rapid reconciliation. We have to refuse retaliation, literally turning the other cheek when we're insulted. We're called to go the extra mile when someone demands our time or resources. And perhaps the most radical, game-changing command of all, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you and pray for the people who deliberately use you. Why? Because God makes his sun rise on both the evil and the good. We are called to perfectly reflect the Father's own merciful heart. So what does this all mean for us? It really all comes down to a critical, deeply personal question. Will you surrender your heart to the Holy Spirit today and allow his radical righteousness to flow from the inside out? Everything we've just looked at, the purity, the peacemaking, that supernatural love for our enemies, it's completely impossible without the new birth and the indwelling Holy Spirit. You can't just fake this kind of kingdom living through sheer willpower. It requires a total, ongoing transformation of the heart. This video was brought to you by Fred Clements from You Need Faith in Jesus. For more videos, please subscribe to the channel for free Bible tools, resources, devotionals, and Christian study materials. Visit unfeed.com. Remember, God blesses the broken who place their faith in Jesus.